Hello Zulia. So after having an amazing field trip at Stradbroke Island, so today my team and I are going to talk about the quality and quantity of tour interpretation and sustainability of tourism practice at this destination. So then, exactly how tour interpretation in an ecotourism site will be defined and what elements of sustainable practices at the site will be included. So let me introduce you the different perspectives about our topic key terms from many different researchers. So first, the use of tour interpretation in the management of ecotourism is very important in ensuring the characteristic of an ecotourism site required. So according to Valentine, the ecotourism is not causing harm, not damaging, not and degrading to the natural environment. So there is conservation and follow and appropriate and complete the management regime. So ecotourism is as a responsible tourism to the natural areas that conserves the environment and sustains the well-being of local people. So, management is very challenged with how the people to provide an enjoyable experiences while protecting tourism sites at the same time. So according Forstel, the interpretation is at the win-win situation for environmental managers and tourists. So in order to achieve this situation, there are two main approaches including hard approach and soft approach. So the hard approach or regulatory management that includes the restriction on access or certain activity, security size, implementation of rules, regulations, zoning plan or site hardening, and the soft approach like educational management that including provision of visitor information, environmental interpretation. Rules and regulations are difficult management strategies because that don't always effective on the long term. So however, soft strategies for providing and interpreting the information can help the visitors both have the destination experience and also gain a better understanding of natural conservation. So the core of interpretation is that an education activity and the knowledge acquisition, alter human behaviors, attitude development, motivation, and intention as well. So next, we will discuss about sustainable tourism and the prism of sustainability. So the World Tourism Organization defined that sustainable tourism is all about meeting the current needs of visitors in the destination while preserving and developing the future opportunities. So, the resources are managed according to the economic, social, aesthetic needs while protecting cultural, environmental, and ecological characteristics. So therefore, the definition of ecotourism is completely suitable for sustainable tourism. So the ecotourism is a sustainable tourism that aims to generate revenue for local communities, education, and this will create the capacity for conservation of tourism sites. However, the importance of policy inside management like job creation or education in eco-destination does not achieve sometimes because the policy may be are uninformed or ambiguous or not consistently implemented, especially in some developing countries. So the introduction of prism of sustainability is very important in order to evaluate a sustainable destination. It plays an important role in making political decisions for sustainable development. And the government is as a factor that brings the remaining factors together to incorporate under sustainable policy properly.
Thank you, Vinci. And before I go on to the methods part, I'm going to touch a bit on the sustainable tourism. So, as Vinci said, there are four components of it, which I'm not going to elaborate over here because I'll be elaborating it in another slide. So, moving on to the methods, we are going to apply the prism of sustainability to the North Stradbroke Island. The practice was critically reviewed, mainly through the observations, and we obtained information from the guide, and we spoke to shopkeepers, and we spoke to locals in Stradbroke, and also we did some heavy research on the internet. Under the prism of sustainability, we'll be looking at four dimensions. So first we would be looking at the governance dimension. So the institutions are the governing bodies that create the regulation components which define the guidelines, code of conduct, policies with regards to all four dimensions. And the economic dimension refers to the financial element where tourism industry generate an income for people in Stradbroke Island. So Kondamuka people sell their arts and crafts and provide tourism facilities such as Manjariba camping, whale watching, and create a profit out of it. And also the environmental dimension looks at the need to minimize negative impact of tourism, such as pollution, resource exploitation, and deforestation. It focuses on maximizing the benefits of tourism on the environment as well. So tourism can contribute to the preservation and conservation of different ecosystems through financial and practical contributions. So the financial contributions can be the financial donations, and practical contributions can be the locals coming together to do cleaning projects. And the social dimension looks at three components such as the tourists, the locals, including indigenous communities and tour operators, and the employees of the tourism industry. So the tourists should be happy with the tourism experience, so they will continue to return to the destination and continue making tourism profits. And the local people need to be happy with the tourism industry, and the tourism industry have to ensure the social well-being of the locals and to elevate their living standards through distributing financial benefits of tourism. And same way the employees needs to be protected by ensuring that fair wages are being paid to them and by eliminating discrimination and child labor practices from the industry. There are six interlinkages that are mentioned in the prism of sustainability. Out of the six, I will speak about three, and the rest will be covered by Jerome. The first interlinkage between people and planet element is the environmental education. The education can be provided through the usage of hard and soft approaches using interpretive signage and pictogram signages. Also, it can be done by service providers. The second linkage is the payment for ecosystem services, which is between the planet and profit elements. As I mentioned before, it can be done by financial contributions and practical contributions. The third linkage is including locals in the tourism industry, which is the way to distribute tourism financial benefits to local and indigenous communities. A few examples can be the Yellingbillah tours, the whale watching that is done by the locals, and Manjariba camping that is done by the indigenous communities. Now we are going to look into the results that we found in Stradbroke Island. Half of the results will be covered by me and the rest of it will be covered by Jerome. So the first area we visited was Myra Springs, and as you can see from the first picture, the embankment prevents erosion and it protects the mangroves from the groundwater discharge which comes at a higher pressure. And there was signage that informs the cultural value of the destination, and hard approaches were used to minimize the impact on flora and fauna. And site hardening was done to minimize the human interaction with the surrounding habitats. Also at Mara Springs, we saw this interpretive signage which educated people on the biodiversity value of this site. And there were tourist facilities like the seating facilities to enhance the visitor experience. But one thing we noticed was there were no waste bins in this area. When we visited Amity Point, we saw there were hard and soft approaches used to educate people. So there were interpretive signages that were used to display the importance of dolphins and the cultural value of them to Kondamuka people, and hard approaches was used to prevent any harm from happening to dolphins with punitive actions in place. And visitor facilities were available, such as toilet facilities, and there were seating facilities as well, which enhances the tourism experience. There were two bins that were not named properly. We couldn't figure out which one collects recyclable waste and which one collects the general waste. And these are a few other observations that we made at Amity Point. Moving on to Filters Beach, there was this awareness signage informing the visitors that the area is full of wildlife, but the signage like slow koalas, I don't know how effective it would be, because if people keep going fast on these roads, it can create an impact on the wildlife. And there was hard approach use as well. With regards to dogs, enforcing a code of conduct to prevent any uh, dogs attacking the wildlife, to protect the biodiversity through this. And however, we didn't see any of the park rangers throughout our tour, so I don't know how effective this would be. As you can see, in certain areas of Point Lookout were closed for natural resources to regenerate without any disturbances. So there were conservation projects going on, and also there was site hardening done to make the tourist experience pleasant and to reduce interferences with the surrounding habitats. And there were viewing decks to enjoy the scenery, which would enhance the tourism experience. And there was this ideological clash between QYAC and another set of Kondamuka people of having a whale watching center. And that's it from my side. And Jerome will be taking the presentation from now on.
Thank you, Minra. When looking at the governance and economic dimension, one of the first things that were observed were the ferry cost, which can range from $9 till up to $203. However, there are vehicle access permits that are available if anyone wants to take their vehicle into the island, which starts at $53 per month, that goes up to $160 per year. Also, one of the things that cannot be ignored when speaking of the economic dimension is the North Stradbroke Island Economic Transition Strategy, which focuses on the Queensland government's funding of $20 million for the island's redevelopment, as well as $5 million extra for Workers' Assistance Scheme to help mine workers transition into new employment. When moving on to the governance and environmental capital, when it comes to site hardening, walkways, fences, and even barriers were present to protect the visitors as well as the environment. And when it comes to signages and interpretation, it mostly refers to the expected behavior around wildlife, mainly around koalas, kangaroos, as well as dolphins. If we were to dive deeper into the environmental capital at the island, certain carbon offset projects are available that are run by the Minjerribah campaign in partnership with Greenfleet. And when it comes to water and waste management services, dual flush toilets as well as water-saving shower heads are available at the island. When it comes to the linkage between governance and social dimension, it was observed that a lack of tourist facilities were present, mainly concerning washrooms. Even though there were washrooms available on the island, they were quite few in numbers and small in size. And when it comes to the code of conduct, signages can be seen as the main regulatory technique that was used mostly throughout the island. However, site authorities were not present to enforce the code of conduct, as well as insufficient rubbish bins proved to be a major problem during our visit. And one of the things in social dimension that cannot be ignored is the Minjerribah Protected Area Expansion Strategy, which focuses on the staged expansion of the national park and other protected area on Minjerribah by the island's traditional owners, the Kondamuka people, as well as the Queensland government. Moving on to the discussion. The discussion section will focus on the analysis of the results discovered, the importance of the study undertaken, as well as recommended future actions. When it comes to the analysis of the results, it can be seen that the preserving of the cultural heritage at the site is at the heart of every activity and operation. And it was also observed that the balance between economic growth and sustainable development was one of the goals of Stradbroke Island. However, the effectiveness of the management techniques are still in question, even though there were scientists present. However, there weren't many authorities present to enforce those code of conducts. When looking at the importance of the study that was undertaken, as we all know, Stradbroke Island is the second largest sand island in the world, which represents as a significant attraction for local and international tourists alike. And when it comes to the marine ecology, biodiversity, and the fact that it's home to many endemic species, understanding the sustainability of the tourism practices that takes place on the island is very important for their survival. And finally, the island represents a symbol of unity between the Kondimuka people and Australians, as well as between Minjarribah. Finally, when looking at recommendations for future developments, as we mentioned before, improving the infrastructure for tourists should be considered a high priority, mainly given that the issues of toilets and the lack of rubbish bins. Moreover, the efficient enforcement of code of conduct has also been given as a recommendation given the importance of the island itself. And finally, more focus should be given on educating the tourists on the importance of the island as well as the level of biodiversity it hosts, also on how their actions could have a negative or positive impact on the island itself. And said that, we would like to conclude our presentation. We have listed the references here for your review. Thank you so much.